Remy LeBeau is trying to prove that a thief still can choose the right side when the stakes become bigger than himself. Before the charged cards and the smooth accent with the X-Men, Gambit was a kid raised by the New Orleans Thieves Guild, ultimately shaped by secrets, trained to steal, and then haunted by his choices that followed him long after Remy joined the team. Welcome back, Panelheads. This is our Get to Know Hero Edition. Today we're breaking down where Gambit began, how Remy LeBeau grew far beyond the idea of a charming thief, and why heroism can look a little different when it comes from someone who knows exactly how easy it is to run and look out for himself. Gambit's first appearance comes in the Uncanny X-Men issue 266, where a de-aged Storm, stripped of her memories and surviving as a thief, breaks into a collector's mansion and walks directly into a trap set by the Shadow King. Remy LeBeau is pulling the same heist when everything starts falling apart, and instead of disappearing after grabbing what he came for, he risks himself by helping Storm from the Shadow King's hounds. Their partnership continues in the next issue of Uncanny X-Men issue 267, where Storm and Gambit agree to work together as thieves in the New Orleans scene before a nanny and orphan maker catch up with them. As Storm begins recovering pieces of her old life, Remy becomes the stranger who helps guide her back towards the X-Men. But the story always leaves Storm with the same question the X-Men will later have to answer. Can this thief truly be trusted? One surprisingly wholesome detail most fans miss is that Gambit owns 3 cats whose names seem to reference classic Disney characters. In The Astonishing X-Men, issue 62, Mystique saves 3 kittens before they become a snack for Sabretooth and leaves them inside Remy's apartment. See, Gambit could have easily found them another home, but the lifelong thief keeps all 3, turning one strange encounter with Mystique and Sabretooth into an unexpected part of his life. The cats first received their names in the all-new X-Factor issue 3, written by Peter David, Oliver, Lucifer, and Figaro. Oliver appears to reference Oliver and Company. Lucifer shares his name with the cat from Cinderella, and Figaro shares his with Geppetto's cat from Pinocchio. Peter David had previously written Disney's The Little Mermaid comics, which makes the connection kinda interesting, although he's never deliberately confirmed that these names were chosen as a Disney tribute. So beneath all that charm, there's also a man who came home to 3 abandoned kittens and decided they were staying with him. Once Gambit joins the X-Men, his evolution is not about leaving the team trapped in the same cycle of suspicion. It's about Remy repeatedly proving where his loyalty lies when disappearing could be so much easier. When Bishop confronts Gambit in X-Men issue 8, he believes Remy will become the traitor responsible for destroying the X-Men in his future. Gambit cannot disprove any accusation from another timeline, so he answers by action instead. In X-Men issue 52, Remy and Bishop work together to stop a runaway train filled with passengers infected by one of the Mr. Sinister's viruses. Gambit charges the train with kinetic energy as Bishop absorbs that energy, leaving them weak enough for Sinister to capture them. This is where Remy escapes and destroys his laboratory. We see Gambit stay until the people aboard the train are safe, giving Bishop much to think about if the future is set in stone. The 1993 Gambit maxi series brings Remy back to his New Orleans roots after he learns Belladonna may be still alive. As Remy grows personally with the X-Men, we could see him remain with the X-Men and leave that part of his life behind, but instead chooses to return because his exile doesn't erase his responsibility to the people still caught inside that conflict. Then Gambit's greatest trust fall moment comes in Uncanny X-Men issue 350, where the team learns that Remy assembled Master Sinister's marauders and helped them enter the Morlock tunnels, while Gambit did not know Sinister's intention to slaughter the Morlocks. Once the attack began, he was mortified and decided to rescue a young mutant who would later become Morrow. Of course, none of this removes his responsibility for bringing the killers together or hiding the truth from the people who had accepted him. Rogue ends up leaving him behind in Antarctica because the trust he had earned was built without one of the insanely darkest pieces of his history. In Gambit issue 5, the Executioner kidnaps Rogue and uses her to draw Gambit into a trap. Remy goes after her despite everything that just happened between them. Remy places Rogue's safety above whether or not their relationship can be repaired. Of course, he cannot undo the mutant massacre or the years he spent concealing his involvement, but he can decide what he does when someone he loves needs him most. For Gambit, relationships are usually about trust. Sure, he can charm people, he can flirt and talk his way out of danger, but it always comes down to whether anyone can trust Remy LeBeau enough without it feeling as though he can lift your wallet as he saves you. Rogue is the relationship most fans connect Gambit with, and for good reason. Their romance is built around immediate attraction and the pain of wanting someone you cannot easily touch. Rogue's powers makes intimacy dangerous, but Gambit's secrets makes emotional closeness just as risky. That push-pull gives the relationship some real weight because they are both people who know what it means to want to love while carrying something that can hurt the other person reaching for for them. When their relationship finally grows into marriage in X-Men Gold, issue 30, and continues through Mr. and Mrs. X, it feels much more than a comic book couple finally getting together. It feels like two people spent years learning how to choose each other instead of allowing fear and every reason to run get them down. Belladonna Pedro is another kind of past that keeps reaching forward to him. She's not only an old love, she's directly tied to the Thieves Guild, in a marriage that was supposed to end a feud, and eventually an exile that changed Remy's life. Through Belladonna, Gambit's New Orleans history becomes more than just flavor added to his origin. It gives us a reminder that Remy's heart, loyalties, and mistakes are far more complicated before he became an X-Man. Gambit's enemies usually land best when they are tied to his debts or the fear of his past that he cannot fully escape. Mr. Sinister is one of those prime examples of this. He does not simply fight Gambit as some run-of-the-mill X-Men villain. He was connected to Remy's powers and one of the darkest paths that led him towards the Marauders. Sinister is the kind of enemy who makes Gambit's past feel like a trap. Every time he returns to Remy's story, it splits that wound wide open, showing us that some bargains do not just end when the job is done. Kendra is the threat tied to the guild world that shaped him. As an external connected to the Thieves and Assassination Guild, she turns Remy's New Orleans background into something much more dangerous than a street-level theft. She pulls the guild side of his world away from a simple crime into a deeper family history and struggles about power and legacy. With Kendra, it causes Remy to question himself and whether or not he can survive the old structures that helped define him. Gambit's powers are stylish, but the style can easily distract how dangerous the ability truly is. His core mutant power is kinetic energy manipulation. He charges objects with explosive force, and the playing cards have become his signature. The cards are a perfect visual misdirection. They look like a simple trick until they become a destructive weapon. Remy also uses a bow staff, his acrobatics, his hand-to-hand combat skills, and instincts of a lifelong thief. He's not only standing in the back and throwing cards. Every motion feels like a part of the same misdirection. His charm is another tool, though. Gambit uses words the way he uses cards. He distracts, probes for weakness, and measures people on how they react to him. Yes, that does make him a little frustrating to teammates who need direct answers, but it also makes him one of the X-Men most suited for infiltration in any undercover work where the straight line could get someone killed. For a lot of fans, Gambit became an instant favorite through the X-Men the animated series. The accent, a deck of cards, and a sense that he's hiding a little more than what he says. X-Men 97 brings that love back with far more emotional stakes, especially through Gambit's relationship with Rogue and the tragedy of Gnosa. His line, "Remember it," has become one of the most talked about X-Men moments in years. He's no longer running or hiding, but he's giving absolutely everything to protect his people and loved ones. Gambit's live-action history has been super strange, as the character spent years feeling as if the fans wanted to see him properly, but we rarely do. Taylor Kitsch played Remy LeBeau in X-Men Origins Wolverine, giving audiences a version of the New Orleans energy, but the role was so limited it didn't feel like him. For years after that, Deadpool and Wolverine finally gave fans Tatum as Gambit, turning years of almost happened history into part of the joke and celebration. That appearance hit hard since the release, though, because we will all be seeing Tatum's Gambit once again in the upcoming Avengers Doomsday. Video games have been a natural home for Gambit. A kinetically charged card is simple to understand, flashy to watch, and satisfying to use. Games like Mutant Apocalypse and Marvel Ultimate Alliance lets players bring the kinetic style into action, and Marvel Rivals Gambit joins the fight alongside the large roster, bringing his kinetically charged aces into the game and turning his card throwing into support and offensive pressure for allies. In modern comics, Gambit is still active in the X-Men world. The 2022 Gambit miniseries goes back before Remy fully joins the team, building more around his early bond with Storm and the events that helped make him into the mutant hero fans know today. Gambit Wanted, Issue 1. From 2026, returns to the period where Gambit brings young Storm back to the X-Men, giving fans another chance to explore the trial that shaped Remy. Behind the cards, trench coat, and smooth confidence lies someone who spent most of his life learning that survival and heroism are not synonymous. Gambit begins as a thief who helps Storm. From there, he earns Bishop's respect, accepts the consequences of his connection to the mutant massacre, and builds a lasting partnership with Rogue. See, the thief never disappeared from Remy LeBeau. What changes is that Remy uses those same instincts to protect those that cannot protect themselves. So, Panelheads, who should we cover next? Should we stay in the X-Men universe with another hero or villain like Cyclops or Mr. Sinister? Bring the spotlight to a lesser-known character like Chamber or Marrow? Or jump over to the DC or Image universe for someone like Mr. Miracle, Joker, or Spawn? Drop a name down below. Other than that, Panelheads, we'll see you again when we cover another one of our favorite comic book heroes from over the years.